Žiga, you're the legal officer at Bitstamp, and you used to be an AML officer at Economy, which was a digital asset management platform, while Bitstamp today is a crypto exchange, a well-known one. You're mainly dealing with prevention of money laundering and terrorist financing in relation to cryptocurrencies. And I hope that you will be sharing the presentation with us soon. Are you connected with us? Do we have
Yes. Hi, Anja. Hi.
Hello, I love your background. Is that Ljubljana?
Yeah, it is. It's a summer version of Ljubljana, not looking this way at this time, but I hope next year it will be the same as in this picture.
Good memories stay with us, though. I hope so too, and I hope to return soon. So yeah, you have some slides. You're able to share the screen with us, right?
Yeah, sure. I think you have to enable me to share my screen.
Rob, can you help us out here? Earth to Rob. Here we go. Žiga, you are now a co-host. And you should be able to share your presentation. All right, here we go.
Okay. Can you see it?
Yep, the stage is all yours.
So, hi everyone. My name is Žiga Perović, as Anja already said. I'm a legal officer at one of the oldest crypto exchanges, Bitstamp. Otherwise, I'm also a part of global community Legal Hackers, which is sort of connects lawyers, technologists, researchers, students, and everyone interested in the intersection of law and technologies. So basically, these issues are really close to my heart. I'm glad to be with you today and take part of the Future Law Summit 2020. So as the title of my talk already says, I will talk about the legal framework and constraints for crypto exchanges. But even more than that, I will try to sort of identify the most important questions that the development of cryptocurrency and subsequently establishment of crypto exchanges is bringing to the surface. So the topic will maybe be a bit more broad than its title. And at some point you will think maybe that I'm not really talking about the legal framework and constraints for crypto exchanges. And you will probably be right in a way, since the following talk will be something of an intersection between legal framework for crypto exchanges and difficult questions that lawmakers and regulators face in relation to the emergence of this new digital value ecosystem. So sort of global, crossing borders, open, partially unstoppable in its nature. I will basically try to sort of look to the future also and ask what challenges may come to the surface now that some of the challenges related to cryptocurrencies are already solved. To start with, these are basically the contents of my presentation. I think there are sort of three major shifts, trends, or issues, depending on your viewpoint, that we should basically discuss at this point when talking about the legal framework for cryptocurrencies or crypto exchanges. So first one is the shift from unregulated to a regulated industry. The second one is sort of fragmentation versus harmonization of regulation. It's sort of a fight between, on a global scale, I would say. So the issue at hand is whether the countries should sort of collaborate and tackle these issues together, or should they compete in a sense. And the third one is international, or in a part also intersectoral legal challenges. So to move to the first one, the development of the first one. The development of cryptocurrencies and cryptocurrency exchanges is mostly marked with a gradual shift from unregulated market participants, products, and services to a more regulated one. If most of the early investors, developers, businesses were asking themselves whether they should be regulated, where to license, where to establish their business, and so on, the situation today is mostly clear. Crypto exchanges have to sort of register as virtual asset service provider in the EU. In states where the latest fifth AML directive is already implemented into national law. They also have to register as money services businesses in the US, acquire money transmitter licenses, or similar in other jurisdictions all across the world. Sort of trading, buying, selling, owning simple virtual assets or crypto assets, such as Bitcoin, is getting more and more clear from the legal viewpoint. And there are basically questions arising beyond that. And at this point, I encourage you to think about these issues a bit, as they are not only legal in a sense, but also political. As the result of how we answer these upcoming questions, I think it depends on what certain jurisdictions want to achieve and what they will achieve. So some of these issues at hand basically include that there are nowadays in the market, there are market participants that may not be organized as companies, may not have bank accounts, corporate addresses, may not have known founders, and so on. There are products that may be sort of governed by code, and the stakeholders of the protocol, which may be users, founders, investors, mix of all of these or similar. And since these services are built on the internet protocol on different blockchains, services may also be offered to anyone, everyone, anywhere, and are mostly unstoppable. So some of the questions that relate to these issues and to the new market entrants coming from the ranks of decentralized finance mostly, basically shift the world from being antagonistic to cryptocurrencies at the beginning to basically accepting them as not being regulated and later partially regulating them. So that was done in order to prevent money laundering, terrorist financing, prevent trading with cryptocurrencies that could be securities, and so on. So the bar at this point is now set at a higher level than a few years ago, but now the questions are a bit different too. So we should basically be asking ourselves, should decentralized exchanges be regulated as well? How can they even be regulated? What happens with products and services governed by code and different stakeholders that lie basically outside of the established corporate law? How can regulation that would be applied in these cases at the same time include the benefits brought to the market by this technology and the general public? And is it even possible to regulate it in a meaningful way in order to protect against the negative outcomes? So these are difficult questions for lawmakers, for regulators, even for market participants when they are deciding on the model under which to operate. So that's sort of the first issue I would address here. The second one being fragmentation versus harmonization is really important. It's actually a really important part of the legal framework for crypto exchanges, and is related mostly to harmonization, or at least planned harmonization in some sense that might end up in fragmentation. As cryptocurrencies sort of challenge the international flows of money and other assets, regulators tend to tackle the issue with harmonizing the regulation in order to approach these issues in the same sense or in the same way. And I think there are basically at least two really good examples. The first one is the Financial Action Task Force travel rule. It's basically a rule that would make compulsory for crypto exchanges to share information about users that are sending or receiving crypto from another exchange, and which the FATF's members and other countries are encouraged to implement. And another example is basically already mentioned fifth AML directive from the EU, which is bringing the crypto exchanges or virtual asset service providers under the regime of obliged entities for all of the anti-money laundering rules that are in place for banks and other financial institutions. So basically these and similar regulations and changes, if not implemented properly and truly applied in a similar fashion across most of the countries involved, might be a force of fragmentation, not really harmonization. So some EU member states have already implemented the fifth EU AML directive and in a way that may go beyond the intended goals of the directive and sort of hinder the access to the products and services that can serve also as force of empowerment for its citizens. And cryptocurrencies and service providers in the field have shown that the boundaries to value exchange may be defeated, and the law should definitely take this into account when trying to harmonize the rules. The lawmakers and regulators of today, when they deal with the question of whether to harmonize or whether to stay away from basically rules of their neighbors, should answer another set of really difficult questions in my view. So should the countries basically connect in its approaches to novel technologies that are inherently international and global? Should they harmonize their responses in order to serve its citizens? And should they regulate in a sense that they would risk fragmenting regulations? And I think that we are often very, or at least the community of people that are working in crypto or somehow investing in crypto is often really antagonistic to regulators, or even sort of giving bad feedback. But at this point, I think these questions are really, really tough to answer and really sort of not really easy to deal with, and inherently global, inherently sort of difficult. So to move on to the third one, which is international challenges, as cryptocurrencies get transferred, exchanged, traded across the border. This, of course, opens some new questions as well. Established cryptocurrency exchanges are wary of where they operate, where they offer their services, but as I already mentioned, incoming new players, including decentralized exchanges, may not play according to these rules. And if peer-to-peer economy shifts from being purely data economy to other sectors, such as governance, finance mostly, lawmakers and regulators will have to come up with a response and shift from sort of offering services locally in one country, a few countries inside commonly regulated markets, to offering services to anyone everywhere may come sooner with cryptocurrencies, which inherently operate in an open fashion, than with other industries. And in that sense, I think that legal framework for established exchanges operating today is clear, as I already mentioned. And what is not clear on the other side is what happens and how laws and regulations get applied to business models that are decentralized, peer-to-peer, global, basically no established corporate entity, or not even connected to an established service, but are merely represent a group of stakeholders governing the ins and outs of the service or product in question. So it's basically important how the established rules will deal with these new business models and sort of companies that are not really being companies, but anything that can get expressed in a code and anything that can facilitate the governance of a virtual service in a sense. And I think it's really important how lawmakers, regulators will deal with that globally. And the question at hand is basically, should we embrace the freedom that crypto assets might pose and the freedom of sort of organizing across borders, organizing value ownership globally, or not? Or should we sort of fragment, go back to the old rules and not make a decision at this point? So to conclude, as you could hear, I think that the legal framework for cryptocurrency exchanges is rather clear and thought out. Anti-money laundering rules are in place and are being implemented across the globe. Exchanges have to register, rules are set, and important jurisdictions are under a watchful eye of the regulators. And even more, upcoming regulations will bring exchanges and other similar services into the realm of regulated financial services in a sense. So, for example, I think most of you heard about the EU Commission publishing a draft of its regulation of markets in crypto assets recently. So again, what is not clear, as I already mentioned, are all the other services, peer-to-peer economy, decentralized exchanges, new ways of collaborating with the use of crypto asset networks, new ways of setting up businesses, transferring value, autonomous organizations, and so on and so on. How will we as a humanity or a certain jurisdiction tackle these issues? And how will the lawmakers regulate these sort of assets or systems of organization? Will we basically create unnecessary constraints, or will we be able to come up with a legal framework that will sort of serve us all? And I think the most important question, also relating to this whole summit, is sort of how will we negotiate the new normal of the borderless, open, and decentralized world? Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was an incredible conclusion as well. Žiga, I have many questions, and I would like to invite everybody to post questions in the chat as well, or just unmute yourself and speak out loud. Basically, one big question that pertains in my mind is, why do we have that need to regulate? Is the regulation really going to be helping us here, the way it's positioned? Because I have a feeling that we want to regulate the counterparties. So for example, with the licenses, the state kind of gives you the allowance to operate and to provide these services to all the clients. But is that really a way to go? Or should we be thinking about, well, how do we use this service now to actually make the whole thing more safe? Because I do believe that decentralized economy and technology can to some extent help us become more transparent, have better overview of what are the criminal activities and what are the activities that are actually good for humanity, And I don't see much of that positive energy being provided to the market or being provided from the regulators. More or less, everybody's just concerned about how do we regulate these so that it doesn't grow and becomes a huge competitive actor on the market that is going to be the alternative to the states. Is that how you perceive it as well? Or do you see that states are actually trying to use this technology more and more to actually see the positive outcomes as well?
That's a tough one. I would say that for now we don't have a better approach. We're basically what regulators are doing, or lawmakers, is that they're applying sort of financial regulation to first to crypto exchanges, which I think is completely logical, and I think it goes well together. But as these new systems take place, or sort of are created on a peer-to-peer basis, we don't have an approach for that. And I think even the past regulations in other areas, such as sort of torrents or other peer-to-peer economy, has shown that we don't know how to deal with these issues. And to a certain extent, I don't think there's a good solution to that. It's basically these networks are so open, so borderless, that they can facilitate anything. And as a regulator that wants to sort of prevent bad actors entering, uh, I'm not sure you have an option. So I don't think there's a good option, um, and I'm not sure we can basically evolve the system to a stage where sort of such systems will be accepted globally.
And you mentioned the EU regulation, and to some extent, I mean, I read some of the reports, and a lot of people are saying that because this is now heavily regulated space, it kind of kills the innovation. Would you agree with that, or is there still a lot of space to maneuver and a lot of space is being provided by the regulators to kind of foster that innovation in this space?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think every regulation to a certain extent will kill innovation, but on the other hand, it will also foster the already existing players, provide them sort of safety and I don't know how to describe that, sort of um, a way to operate in the market, um, be more safe in regards to their counterparties, and to business partners. So as we can see with sort of established crypto exchanges, in the past they had numerous problems with operating with banks, opening bank accounts, and so on. I don't think that's a problem today. Maybe in a minor area, and I think regulation basically brings that, so that the other market participants not really connected to the industry can be sure that, okay, you're now a regulated or a registered entity, and we can basically trust you because someone supervises your business, or at least takes a look at every a few years or so. So I think it's sort of a two two-sided question. Yeah, it kills a certain part of business, and it um, positively impacts the other side.
So it's almost like it builds on the reputation of a party that actually complies with the laws,
Mm-hmm.
which brings a lot of trust into the laws. Um, I mean, there has been this notion, however, that everything that has connection to crypto is based on the anarchistic movement and wants to go against the states. And when you speak about decentralized exchanges, do you believe that there's a possibility to kind of create the self-regulatory regimes? And are we to trust all these private networks or, decentralized autonomous organizations that are creating the exchanges? Or do you believe that the state approach is far better?
I think I'm actually of the opinion that it's possible to create a peer-to-peer network or decentralized exchange or autonomous organization that would be completely compliant with the laws. But because the most problematic thing here is basically, or at least for lawmakers and regulators, is the KYC. So if someone would solve the KYC issue to be sort of embedded in the network or in the blockchain that we're using, I think that would make possible for us to create systems that would be completely compliant and would maybe in a sense would shatter the anarchistic dreams of being sort of privacy driven and so on. But on the other hand, the business models that would emerge would be so um, basically um, would drive the development forward and would offer something new to the market, in my opinion.
And what about, I mean, having an exchange that offers services across different jurisdictions, right? You have to be familiar with all the regulations across the world. So for example, you establish a regulation or a regulated exchange, let's say in Switzerland, and then you offer your services to the US. And we heard about the US regulation heavily imposed on the European companies as well because of the long arm principle. What does that mean for a lawyer working with that exchange? How do you keep track with all the regulations, and what are the biggest regulatory challenges that you're facing?
Well, basically, you have to be aware that wherever you actively offer services, wherever you target sort of customers, you have to be compliant. So that means either approaching the regulator, registering your business, being sort of open that you're participating in the market and dealing with all the compliance issues or legal issues there. It also means that you have to sort of protect the customers. Sometimes, yeah, of course, that's hard to do from a legal perspective, but that's also, at least in my opinion, that's sort of um, an entry. I would say a high bar for entry for all the market participants. If you want to run a global business, you have to have, at least in my view, a lot of money, a lot of lawyers to back you up, sort of, either just paying for legal services or having your own in-house legal department. So it takes a lot of effort to do that, of course. And that's why I think the discrepancy between sort of established regulated crypto exchanges and maybe decentralized exchanges is so big. Because if we look, for example, at Uniswap, I think it's a team of 6 or 7 people, or at least it was in the beginning. And if you look at regulated exchanges, it's what, teams of hundreds, if not thousands of people. So yeah, that's the difference that it takes to be regulated.
For sure. Would you have any advice for people that want to come to crypto community that are possibly on the call with us today? Where to, for example, start looking into, or where to find the best possible advice when it comes to legal or regulation? What are the good sources?
Good sources. I personally really love Twitter. There's a lot of good people that talk about crypto and sort of regulation connected issues there. But of course, you have to identify those. And a lot of lawyers working in the space have their blogs, podcasts, and so on. So I think it's easy to follow the whole field. Maybe even easier than other fields of law, I would say. But to sort of talk about the whole community, I would basically start with podcasts and books, because if you start with just websites and blogs, that may be, they may include information that's not really relevant or true or really informative. So I would start with some great podcasts and books by renowned authors, basically. So
Thank you so much. We'll be sharing those books and authors as well. If you have any podcasts or Twitters worth following, please do share them with us in the chat. Thank you for the presentation. I think it was very informative. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. And I would love to keep you in the room because there's going to be a very special session coming up. There's going to be a chance to connect with all the rest of the negotiators coming from various different stages. They're all going to be merged in this very session. And we're going to be talking about a collaborative journey. Or as Karim would say, we're going to be deep diving for 1.5 hours on issues brought to the negotiating table by some of you in smaller groups. What is an issue that needs attention or collaboration from more people here at the summit? If you have a burning question or topic you want to talk about, you'll get the chance to speak about it in the breakout rooms or through the weaving session that we're going to experience right after this one. Thank you, Žiga, so much.